Right, I'm gonna walk you over to my break space. So this is my break room. I have a piece of laminated paper that goes over part of the window just so that if a kid is inside the space, they're not banging and peeking out and the kids that are in the classroom aren't peeking in. Hopefully, there we go, there's the light. I have some light covers that will go over the fluorescent lights and a pad for them to lay on. I have some other items like bean bags and whatnot, but sometimes this is a space if somebody's really not safe and we need to use a physical intervention to help them to stay safe. I needed to be able to have free wall space to do that, and I can't have a lot of items in here just in case somebody is really in crisis. It's my goal, my hope that one day this can be a Zen zone, and that I don't have to worry about having a space for physical restraint or physical intervention. Like if it's, it just won't be needed. But at this time, I know that it is needed sometimes. This room has 2 doors on it. And the second door leads to my other classroom. Let me actually go to the front of the room so you can see what coming in this room would look like if I came in from the hallway. So we just came from that classroom over there. I try to have students always transition between the rooms by going through the hallway, and that they do not transition between the rooms by using the break space. So when we transition, we stop here and they wait for the next instruction. And then when they're released into the room, over the summer, not this past year, but the prior year, I spent a lot of time on Facebook Marketplace, like finding businesses that were going out of business so I could pick up all of their supplies. And these 2 metal bookcases were one of those. I needed to create a funnel for when kids were entering the room that kind of directed them and how they entered the space, because otherwise it was chaos. And if I don't think about the flow of the room and how they're going to use the space and then design it with not just my words, but also with furniture choices to help reinforce that and make it so that's really like the only choice that they have, I found it was just chaos coming in and out of the rooms. Now, of course, I'm spending, those first 6 weeks of school hitting procedures really hard. I'm not very content heavy, definitely not the first week. It's all about community building and practicing procedures. So I'm explicitly teaching how to line up, how to walk in a line, how to enter a room, how to leave a space, how to re-enter a room, all of those things. When they come in, there are some cubbies here as well. Again, I have these all labeled. The empty cubbies, I put some empty paper trays, and I got those from a business that was going out of business, so I didn't have to go broke buying all of the supplies. And then these are just dollar store bins. This is part of our Daily 5 and Cafe. They are required to have 5 books in their book bin at all times. So if they were coming into this room for reading, one of the instructions they would get before they even entered the room, I would stop the line and I'd say, all right, guys, we're getting ready for reading. We're going to start with Read to Self today. Please grab your book boxes and take a seat at your desk, or something along those lines. So they would come in here, they would find their name. So maybe Tristan grabs his book box, and this is a book box that is filled with books that he has chosen. So not books that I've required him to choose. And then they go and find their seat. Everybody has 2 desks and then at least like a desk space between them. I found that just works best in my room because they're carrying their binders with them. So Tristan sits here at this first desk, and if he had his book box and also his binder, he would not have like any working space. So the book box and the binder go on this second desk, and that allows him to also have working space here, which helps with kids who have a really hard time with organizing and who are visual. And so like if they put it inside of the desk, they forget that it's there or how to use it. And I can't swing by and just hit them up with a stamp for being calm and safe and doing it right. if their binder is inside of their desk. So I give them two. I also find that it gives an extra buffer between each student, which tends to help with arguments. Also know that I don't have students in my space just yet. Like, I'm not gonna have things on top of here. Like, if somebody's having a bad day, that's way too easy for them to just dump it all over the floor, and I do not have time to clean that up every single day. So I'm conscious of that, and I know that I'm gonna need to be prepared on day one, so on Tuesday, to make sure that this is cleaned off. Over here, I have my word workstation, so whiteboards and dry erase markers and magnets and tiles and Play-Doh and other things that they can use when they're doing their word work. And I also have a bunch of different types of word work worksheets, like Scrabble. Each letter of their spelling words is worth a certain number, and then they try to get a really high score when they're writing their numbers out. Another time timer. I really like these guys because the less I have here on this sill, the less that can just get tossed and knocked around, the less items that can be used as projectiles. So I try to keep things away and contained, but still looking like a general classroom would. This needs a little bit of organization. This is the other side of my bookcases. Like, you'll see on the top right there, some of my worksheets for word work. And again, this is like stuff had to get packed away at the end of the year, and I shoved a lot of it into the bookcase. It's not going to look like this by the time I actually have students. I needed them to be able to access this stuff really easily. All right. I have my hand signals and my self-control strip, along with a multiplication chart and the calendar. Up top, I have posters related to figurative language. So my class is for students with emotional and behavioral disorders. It's the behavior self-contained classroom. And a lot of times that means students on the spectrum who have higher skill sets in some areas and maybe not in others, and also with kids with a lot of trauma and emotional regulation issues, attention deficit disorders, things of that nature. And figurative language is something that all of them struggle with. So it's nice to have those poster reminders up. Again, I label all of my cabinets that I do not want kiddos getting into, so it's really clear about what they can and cannot access. They're welcome to the sink and to the drinking fountain when they've asked permission, and they're welcome to get underneath the sink, again, for the clean and dirty bucket of towels, but they may not access those drawers or cabinets. I have my remote control posted again. I use the Mind Up curriculum. Part of Mind Up includes teaching kids about their brain so that they learn about the limbic system. Everybody in my class knows what an amygdala is and where it is in their brain. And I reference this poster all the time. Again, I have my schedule up, so it's in both rooms. Computer stations set up. I have 3 laptops set up at these tables here. This was not something that I had originally. A lot of the furniture in my room I've had to acquire slowly over time. So this is not something that like day one was ready to go. And I just keep adjusting as I acquire new things and then getting rid of some other stuff, but trying to make do with whatever I've got. I found that because kids in my room have behavioral support needs, a lot of times those needs weren't addressed when they were younger. So there's a lot of holes in knowledge, like an incredible number of 4th, 5th, 6th graders who didn't know what a vowel is. So I use some really simple supports like labeling what the vowels are on my alphabet in here. And this alphabet I tried to make like not kiddish in any way. So I talk a lot about like L is for less than and G is for greater than. So those are, it's a way for me to have visual systems set up in the room that aren't, babifying? That's probably not the word I'm actually looking for, but you get the idea. Here is my cafe wall. So every time I'm teaching a new skill for comprehension and fluency. I put the little note card up here so that everybody references it throughout the year. It starts blank except for voracious reading. That's the very first thing that I teach. And we talk about how voracious reading helps with comprehension, accuracy, fluency, and expanding their vocabulary. And that my number one goal for them every year is that they're reading and reading a lot. This is a piece of furniture that last year I was using as a drying rack before I have my drying rack in the other room, and I don't need it anymore, but I did need something to serve as a buffer between students who were going to be working at the computer and my printer. I really don't want that printer getting tossed, and so I just wanted to think about, again, like, how am I using the space and how can I use furniture to just naturally set things up so that it becomes a non-issue. So I just stuck it there. I don't need it. It doesn't serve any purpose other than to protect that printer, but the kids don't know that. Back here is my teaching space. A little disorganized right now. I am careful about how this is set up. I wanted to have a narrow space for me entering and exiting it. I do sometimes invite kids when they're having one-on-one time with me to come back here. And I have a chair set up for them to be able to use. It's a nice fancy office chair, and it feels like a privilege to get to come back into this area. But again, using my furniture to kind of visually set up the space, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just like an open free-for-all. Anybody could walk back there, because I didn't want somebody to be in crisis and to just run into something that looked like an open space. Like they have to think about going through that, narrow entry. This was an extra bookcase that somebody was giving away that I don't really need, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to use it, and I've just kind of stuck it here for now. In the back, I have crates for everything. So this crates just work for me because they're fast. Like, I can dig in and find the item that I need, and it's really easy for me to put it away. I find that having systems that I can put things away faster or as fast as it took me to take it out helps to manage like the endless amount of papers that are just everywhere all of the time. So this one is for like coloring and dot-to-dot activities, and I try to have a teacher helper, a parent helper, somebody like that, like make photocopies of books so that I don't have to keep like reusing books over and over, or I don't have to keep buying books rather, and I can use the same ones and just make master copies. This is for completed work that I want to keep and save for writing my progress notes or for parent-teacher conferences. And then I purge this probably quarterly, and stuff that's like super great work samples that I want to save to review at like the next IEP, I put in another space. This is a box of read-alouds that I don't want mixed up with the rest of my library books that I go to every single year. This is lesson plans. I needed to have a way for my educational assistants to be able to take over for me and to run a lesson at any point in time. So, for example, during reading, I have in my reading section each student's name and their individual reading assignments. So again, I'm using that workshop model. So if somebody has a packet that I really want them to be working on, or they finished the packet that's already in their book, their next packet will be in here. So Aiden, he's right up front. If Aiden finishes his work and Miss Chrissy's like, I don't know what to do with you next, she's going to open up she's going to go to the reading section and find Aiden's reading folder, and she's going to go, oh, Kristen wants him to work on sentences. He's having a hard time with a complete sentence, and we're going to have him do some practice with this piece. And so the next assignment is already ready. And that just keeps things moving smoothly, and there's zero guessing. Like, EAs know exactly where to go to find the next assignment for math and for reading and for anything else. Now, for sections where everybody's going to be doing the same thing, like for social skills or for art, I have those just set up by the days of the week and not necessarily by the students. So I'll have one for, Monday science and Tuesday science and, that kind of deal. This section here is my, or this crate here rather, is my spelling. Each kid has a differentiated spelling list, but rather than coming up with a whole lesson plan or a whole list system individually for each kid, I was like, how can I simplify this so that I'm not spending hours and hours and hours and hours trying to differentiate? So I use the Fry 1000. I give them a simple assessment at the beginning of the year, so I kind of have an idea where they're at with their spelling. And I find that there's so many holes within their spelling that basic words like the versus then versus than, like kids are really struggling with. So it's helped a lot with writing fluency for them to practice those basic Fry 1000. So I have in the front, each individual student has a folder, and in the folder is a tracker, and to the front of that is their word list for whatever it is that they're working on. And as they master it, it gets colored in, and I have the educational assistant write down the date that they passed it. Behind that is my spelling test sheets. Just look like this. So there's copies. And then I have the first 100 words, set 1, set 2, set, and then we go to the second 100 words. It took a lot of time to get this set up, but now that it's set up, it is self-sustaining, and I don't even have to think about it, and my EAs can run it, and really the students can even just come into this crate and they know, all right, I finished the third 100, so that means I need to go to list 1 of the fourth 100, and they can grab their list and they know that, like, those are the words that they're working on now. It was totally worth the entire weekend that I spent setting that up. Some Dollar Tree supplies. I like kids to have water bottles available, but it had to be something that I could clean easily. So I tell kids they're not allowed to have anything with spouts or straws because I just do not have time for washing those all the time. Like, I try to make sure it's some kind of a sturdy plastic. I'm not a real big fan of Dollar Tree. Most of these end up like water balloons, like it drops and it explodes everywhere. These particular ones are a little bit sturdier though. So they have the spout that makes it easy for me to clean. I don't have to worry about straws. They're small enough that and they're made out of plastic. Like, nobody's going to get hurt if this gets chucked across the room. So I'm very careful about the supplies that I choose and thinking through how could this potentially be used or misused in my class. This I got at a garage sale, and it's just like a little pocket holder, and you could make this really simply or find another system. But everybody has these little like dollar store snack contraption things that you can get for like $3-4. Sometimes I have them for $1 at the Dollar Tree, and inside them I put students' headphones. So here, for example, his name is rubbing off, but this was Charles, and these are headphones that he uses when he's working at a computer or with an iPad, or even if things are getting loud and he doesn't want to use the noise canceling headphones that are like big earmuffs because he's worried about how it's going to make him look to other people. You know, sticking earbuds in your ear is something normal that everybody uses all the time, and the kids don't mind it because it's something that they see everybody else using, and those are available there. This drawer I fill with items that I might need to help calm kids down. So I have miniature bottles of water and some tissues and body socks and earplugs and some weighted neck rolls and sand bins and magnets and things that are really quick, easy access. So if somebody is in my break space, which is right here, it's super easy for one of my educational assistants to quickly come and grab a tool that a student might need. Phone is in the back corner there. I really don't use it a lot. I tend to have parents use my cell phone. I know a lot of people don't want to give out their cell phones, but I found that it just works better for me that with 2 classrooms, I often can't even hear my phone ringing, and it's much easier for me to respond to a text real quick than it is to like constantly be trying to check my emails or constantly running back to my phone to see if I've missed something. Okay, so this is the back of my room. One thing I didn't show earlier was like supply systems and how kids access their supplies. I use flexible seating, so everybody has a desk, but then they also have the option for flexible seating. Like, as long as you're attending and participating, I don't really care if you're sitting on the floor, as long as you can be sitting on the floor respectfully. And again, I explicitly teach what that looks like and give examples and non-examples, and then we do some role playing and practice that. So I have clipboards in here, I have noise canceling headphones, and in the very bottom are markers that have expired. So I have somebody be my marker tester as one of my class jobs. It's often somebody on the spectrum that needs like a calming sorting job to help them to do their best. And we just recycle those. Like I soak them in water and I make my own watercolor paint out of them. Anyway, green bins, I always use the same color bin in both classrooms with a sign that says turn in your work here, so they know when they're done with something. They don't have to say, Miss Kristen, what do I do with this? Like, they all know it goes here into the turn-in bin. Coloring pages that I've already introduced to them. So not the ones that are in the back of the room that are like my master copies, but other items, go in here. So if somebody needs a calming activity or a choice time activity or an extra art thing or whatever, like they have free access to that. So many students would avoid work with pencils, so I had to think about, all right, what's my policy for pencils gonna be? And I was thinking through each and every procedure in my room. It probably took me the most time with setting up my room, like what are pencils and pencil sharpening gonna look like? What is putting something in the recycle bin gonna look like? And what's getting a drink of water gonna look like? Like each one of those pieces I had to think about so that I knew exactly how I wanted to teach it. And of course I got half of it wrong. I needed to go back and change it and then reteach it. And that was a great time for me to model making mistakes and learning from mistakes to the kids. So pencils that have erasers and are sharp go here. Pencils that are sharp but somebody's chewed off or used up all of the eraser go there. And pencils that are broken and need to be sharpened go here. And then I just use these little bins to organize it. So if somebody needs a new pencil, they know they just come over here, grab a pencil, and then they go back to their seat. Everybody starts with 2 pencils in their pencil pouch. I do not allow them to sharpen pencils in class. That's a class job that happens like before school or during like my get organized classroom cleanup time. Extra lined paper and plain paper. It's not always white, which is why I like put yellow ones, because sometimes I have different colors of paper and they just use up that copy paper way too quick to scribble on. So I found that using other colors prevents them from going through it so quickly. I have a color-coded system for grabbing new markers. So if your red marker has bit the dust, it's really easy to go, okay, how do I find another red marker? Same deal for colored pencils. There's a section for each color, and I combined the gray, the white, and the black over here. And then if any of their color pencils need to be sharpened, they go in this white guy over here. So if you're coming in like replacing your white, your old white, you would stick in here. And that way it makes it really easy for the person whose job it is to sharpen pencils to just go to the pencils to sharpen bin. And then lastly, I've got the same kind of deal set up for my crayons. So everybody starts out with their own pack of crayons, but then these are also like the crayons from last year. Everybody wants to start the year with a brand new set, but the stuff from last year like still works perfectly great. And so I just use that to fill up those bins. Okay, very last thing that I will show you is my library, and this will have a sign on it that says it's my library. It used to be used prior to me taking over this class as a an additional brick space, but it's like way too small for that. And I also wanted a spot for keeping my books so students can have access to lots and lots and lots of books, because that's one of the most important things if we really want to develop readers, is making sure they have access to books that they get to choose. Anyhow, so I didn't want them just out in the classroom where they're going to get chucked and torn and potentially trashed. So the library is special. The kids love it. They treat it with a lot of respect. They ask permission to just come in here and like hang out and lay on the floor and read quietly by themselves. And it really is a treat to be able to use this space. Whereas I knew if I had these books out and displayed within the room, that if somebody were in crisis, it would just be too easy for the books to get trashed. So having them in their own separate space is like, it's coveted. Anyway, and I gotta say, I'm really lucky with the amount of space that I have in my room. I super lucked out in that way. I have my books sorted by Lexile, and I do that to help the kids know and to help my assistants know that a book that a student is reading is a good fit book. And I talk about like the 5-finger rule for choosing a book, and there's lots of different ways to make sure that students are using a good fit book, and there's lots of reasons why Lexiling a library might not be the best choice, but it's what I'm doing right now, and it's what seems to be working for my class right now, and that might change later. Here's books that need to get reshelved, go in this laundry bin up top. So if kids are looking for books in this Lexile, narrow just means that the bin it's in is narrow versus wide. So books that like they just don't fit very well go in the wide ones. And I model for kids all the time that just because something has pictures in it doesn't mean that it's going to be a low Lexile. For example, like one of everybody's favorite books is Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. And that's got a Lexile of 970, but it's definitely a picture book. And so specifically talking with kids about that prevents pushback about like something being a baby book or having a low Lexile or a high Lexile being more desirable or less desirable or whatever. Right, so that is the overview of my space. You are welcome at any point in time to come by and visit and to take a look, to see us in action. And if there's anything that you would like to borrow or need some help with, feel free to reach out at any time. I had so much help getting things put together, and I had so many questions. So if I can return that favor and be of any sort of assistance, please don't hesitate to be in touch. Thanks.